Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Melissa.
And my name is Tracy, and we are so glad you're joining us for today's episode. Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Sam Fisher, adult TCK who grew up in Indonesia and Malaysia as a missionary kid to an American dad and local Indonesian mom. Returning to the U.S. for college was another huge transition, but his network of relationships from boarding school and all the new university friends helped him feel at home. In this episode, listen to Sam discuss his journey to finding his identity, embracing his superpower of fitting in, and processing his childhood even more as he and his wife raise their own children. So buckle your seatbelts and make sure your tray tables and seats are in their upright positions as part 2 of Sam's round trip story gets ready for takeoff. All right, we're back with part 2 of Sam Fisher's story. This interview is with Sam as a third culture kid. So again, kids who have grown up part of their childhood outside of their passport country. So Sam, thanks again for joining us. And can you just tell us a little bit about your repatriation backstory? Remind us where you lived abroad and how long you were there. We'll start with that.
Sure. I lived in Indonesia. And so if you want to find Indonesia, just find Australia and you just go north and there's a bunch of islands. That's Indonesia. I went over before I was 2 and lived there for 14 years before coming back to the U.S. My mom is from Indonesia. My dad's from California, and they were missionaries there. And we came back for 3rd and 4th grade, for 8th grade, and then finally came back when I graduated high school.
And you did several years in Malaysia at boarding school.
That's right. Yeah, for 7th grade and then for high school. I was at boarding school in Malaysia. My parents came back to Fresno just before my junior year, but I still was able to finish over there. And that was really important to have that stability. So after that summer, I was getting ready for college. So I went to Wheaton College out in Illinois. It was neat because I actually had visited the campus when I was a 3rd or 4th grader when we lived out there. So I'd seen it one time. I had one classmate who was also attending the same year as me. And there was a couple of kids who'd gone a year or 2 ahead of us. And then the year after us, there was 2 more kids. Oh, and my English teacher went there. So that was why I applied to go to Wheaton, was my English teacher in high school in Malaysia had gone there. And it was a great school. And what was awesome about it was they had like 10% of the freshman class were missionary kids.
Wow.
And so there's lots of missionary kids that kind of had the same background experience that I did. It was just in different countries. Like some kids who were from the academy down in Quito, Ecuador. You get to meet the missionary kids from Africa, the missionary kids from Latin America. And they had a group on campus. We were still called MKs back then. It wasn't TCKs just yet, but
MK, like missionary kid.
Missionary kid, yeah.
Well, you found your people. That's really great. Like you had people that understood you and that you understood them, and you were in this United States university environment, however Christian. And so, you even had your cousins from Dalat International School in Malaysia. You even had a couple of those there. That's really sweet.
It really was, yeah.
So, Sam, tell us about your reentry and transition after you moved back.
Sure. The transitions was always a difficult type of event to go through. And at my boarding school, you really do become like a family. And every year, even before you're a senior, there's some rituals that you go through for saying goodbye to the graduates. And we would line up by the seawall outside the cafeteria, and they had like these kind of bigger outdoor Christmas lights like strung up. And we called it the Wailing Wall. And you just kind of went through and gave each senior a hug and told them you loved them. And like if you had your senior photo, you'd write it on it, and your yearbook or whatever. And it was just kind of a very weighty kind of transition to say goodbye to these friends that were like family. And my sister had prepared me for it. And so when I was a seventh grader, she was a senior. And so I got to say goodbye to all her friends. And by then I kind of knew them and they all knew me as her kid brother. And then you come back and it's going through that again. It's kind of a very sad, kind of moment. And it was before email. And so all you had to do was like write letters, like snail mail. And people, we didn't even know where we were going to be living. So you would have someone's grandparents' address in Nebraska. And that was the best address till they got to college, So it was just, that was difficult. So you go from that to Kalinga, where it's not the tropics, it's the summertime, and it's like the middle of nowhere. It's not on the way to anything, and
no, it's not.
Just, it's very hard to like. Even the stars were different. Like you go outside and you look up in the sky and you're at a different latitude. You're not on the equator anymore, and it just is so foreign and so different. And it's physically, it's kind of like a desert, and then emotionally, you feel like it's a desert. And so, like, I worked at Harris Ranch, and on your name tag, they let you put like where you're from, like a city and state or country or whatever. So I put Penang, Malaysia, because that was the most recent place that I had been. And so it's a point of conversation with the guest at the restaurant, but it felt like that's where I was from, and I was in a very foreign environment.
And Sam, I see in your notes that you talked about the reentry counseling or training.
Right. So some denominations, they had like a sessions or a camp or some special thing that they had for their kids to go to. We didn't have that in our mission sending agency. We did have some like chats or maybe talks with the high school guidance counselor. And so I think she covered some of that information on what to prepare for. It was an international school in Malaysia, but it was college prep. And a lot of the graduates ended up going back to at least North America for college. And around graduation time, sometimes you'd have alums from previous years who would stop by, and in one of our classes, they would do like a Q&A and talk about the different things to be aware of. And because you're in a very, very sheltered kind of Christian school environment, and who knows what kind of school you're going to go to, or like say you go to UCLA, like how many thousands of kids are there,
Right?
Or even Fresno State, right?
Or even if you go to a Christian school, some of them are small and some of them are big, and they're all, though, going to be significantly larger than the student body that you had been at before. So it would be a big difference no matter where you went.
What's nice, though, is every incoming freshman is going through some sort of transition like that,
Yes.
So you get there for orientation week, and everyone's in the same boat. They're all like, "Oh, what's your dorm?" And there's the 3 questions that everyone asks. So I was undecided on my major. I ended up majoring in Bible, but I wasn't sure. And you throw in the question of like, where are you from? I'm like, is it Penang? Is it Indonesia? Is it Kalinga? So there's 3 questions everyone asks you when you're a freshman at college during orientation. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your major? And I only knew the answer to one of them.
Your name.
So tell us about something that was hard.
Probably the saying goodbye to the friends was really difficult. The other part that was hard was the way that my family had made decisions as I was growing up. Like it was about the mission work was the center of gravity for that. It's like you're serving God, and as a teenager, it's kind of hard to compete with God for what the decisions are that your parents are making. But I value the experience, and I value their commitment to serving God, God's people. But it just is a tricky thing. And like I end up at college, and I hadn't visited, like I don't know if you guys got to visit your schools, and they did interviews sometimes, but because I was international, I didn't even interview. So I got to campus early for orientation, and I knew John was going to be there from high school, but I knew nobody else. And then I think they had given us some phone numbers of your roommate, so you could call like ahead of time and just kind of check in. So I did, but like it's just tricky to find yourself. But like I said, every freshman is going through that. And what was great was there was the large population of missionary kids at the school, and to
Yeah.
make those connections make those new friendships with friends who know the same kind of, I don't know, same kind of baggage that we carry, that's special TCK baggage, but they have the same kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it was saying goodbye to the old friendships and then making new friends. That was the tricky part. Transitions are always difficult.
So tell us a story about something that helped either then or has helped since then.
I think what's helped is maintaining the friendships that I had then. We went from writing letters to then we had Facebook. And finally, when I got on, I realized, oh, there's all these friends that are on there. And some of the friends from my high school who didn't graduate with me, I could still be friends with them on Facebook and see what's going on. And there's some downsides to social media, but it's really been great to still have those connections. And I have cousins, because my mom is Indonesian. I have cousins who are Indonesian, and that's kind of how I can keep in touch with them too, is through some of that social networking that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is that I did get to go back, which was a really neat thing. Like, Rachel and I worked in the Virgin Islands right after we were married, and we saved up enough money to go back to Indonesia. So I called the travel agent. I had worked in the Chicago area for this company called World Relief, and we worked with some travel agents. So I just called them and said, hey, this is where I need to go, and I'll need a hotel here and here. And so they took my money and they set it all up. And it was perfect because like the internet was around, but I was like, if I'm booking a hotel in another country, and the international airfare, there's a little bit.
What year was this?
It was 2002.
Oh, yeah. Back then, it wasn't like it is traveling internationally now.
Right. Right. There's a lot more tools now, a lot more connectivity, and you could just figure it out. And you could Uber from the airport.
You can rent an Airbnb on the other side of the world.
Right. Yeah. No, didn't have that. So we did travel agent. We go back to Indonesia. I get to see my preschool. We walk by. I stay with my great aunt who lived around the corner, where I watched Little House on the Prairie. We went to the church service that lasted for hours, where it was commissioning of those students going out in Bible college. We got to go to Bali, and you can rent a car with a driver and he'll take you around. And he takes us to go to the wood carving shop, to go to the Hindu temple, to go to the fabric batik place. And it was great. So we got to go see some of those places, and then got to go to a volcano, and my great aunt went with us. Indonesia has tons of volcanoes, and if you look out your door, like my door growing up, I could see one erupting in the distance. It always was having ash come out, but it's just like the foundational memory is, oh, you look, there's mountains.
Yeah. Well, just like living here, when it's clear enough, look up and there are the mountains. Like, those things are just part of your world.
Yeah, landforms really make us feel at home, depending on what that landform is, whether it's a volcano or the Sierra Nevadas or desert or tropical weather.
Yeah, or the beach.
Yes, the beach, the ocean.
The Pacific Ocean. I got baptized in the Pacific Ocean, so it's always nice to see it. Oh, maybe it was the Indian Ocean. It was off of Penang, but it was the ocean, so that still counts.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Right.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
And we got to go back again. It was about 11 years ago when my mom had a birthday. She turned 70, and she said, I want everyone to go back to Indonesia. And so it's like, okay, let's do that. So we got to it wasn't just me and Rachel this time. It was the 4 kids. Met my parents in LA, flew all the way to Indonesia, end up at an Airbnb now type of setup just around the corner from my great aunt's house. And then on that trip, we went to my elementary school, which had moved locations 2 or 3 times. And then I go in the library, and in the back of a couple of books there, I pulled out the card, and it still had my name on it from when I had read it, like in 5th or 6th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the proof.
That is so cool.
You were there.
Like, after all of the places that you had gone, to be able to come back and point to something physical, like, that's just cool. That's really neat.
It was neat. And the thing is, you go back, you show your kids the place, and the reality of life is change is constant, and you can't ever go back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Change is always constant. The people change, and I wish on the trip for my mom's birthday we had made the special stop in Penang, but the school has changed, and the staff is not there anymore. My classmates have families of their own all over the world. Some of the classmates might be teachers there, but it's just different, So there's some things that we remember and we say, oh, that was really special. And we get to kind of touch it in the book, the back of the library book, but some of it is different.
Mm-hmm. And so tell us any select comments that your kids made when they were back in Indonesia, seeing where their dad grew up?
That's a good question. So the youngest was 2, and we got to go to my mom's home island, her province, which I hadn't been to since I was like a 2nd grader. So that was kind of neat. I think for the older kids, they had a great time. I don't remember any big comments about it though. But we made a nice photo book, and so we can look through and see some of the stuff we did.
That's cool.
And it's kind of fun for them to remember-ish. But my oldest, he was about late elementary, so he had a great time like snorkeling. And so I think he had an iPod Touch, and so he took some photos of the trip on that. So it was kind of fun for him to experience it. Oh, and we did tell them this because we're so jet lagged. It like door to door, it was 40 hours of travel by the time we finally like got to hit the bed.
Gosh.
And with a 2-year-old, so it's kind of bonkers.
Oh, yeah, that's a great age.
Although at least they can still sleep anywhere, and then they won't sleep when you want to sleep.
Well, and what happens is like they're not on the right clock, and so they're waking up as like, guys, you can't make noise till you hear the call to prayer at 4:30 in the morning. So wait till you hear the mosque, and then you can get up and get water. But if you don't hear them, and then after like 2 days, 3 days, they were fine.
We are at one of my favorite questions. So this is our TCK Choose Your Own Adventure question. So you get to pick one of these questions to answer. So either how often do you think about being or having been a TCK now, and how much does it affect your life now? Or what are some of your favorite experiences of connecting with other TCKs? Or do you have a favorite funny story about your time abroad or transition back?
So I'll pick the transition back question.
Okay.
But just as a sidebar, I don't think too much about my childhood really in the day-to-day. And even though I have 4 children, they're not very inquisitive at all about life in the olden days before they were around and what it was like for them. Like every now and then I'll talk to them about how awesome boarding school was, but that's about it. So when I was 14 or 15 in Indonesia, I couldn't remember exactly how old I was, but my sister wasn't there because she was at boarding school. We had a couple of grad students come through and visit us, and at the grad school where they were, it was Sean and Ariana, they had like a 3-week immersion kind of option. There was a couple of locations that they could go to, and they picked Indonesia to go to learn about missions work. And for the last week of their trip, they spent it with us. So we got to take them to this really cool camp up in the mountains. And then it was like a retreat center. And then they went with us to Bali and take them snorkeling, that kind of thing, and have a great time. They're great people. And they're from Massachusetts, which I couldn't find on the globe at that time. And then you fast forward 10 years later, and I'm applying to grad school. I get in, and we have orientation for grad school. Take your photo, and they have their old school directory, like the paper Facebook where it has your name and phone number. And so Dr. McDonough is looking through the Facebook and he sees my name. And he's like, Sam Fisher. Is that the same Sam Fisher from Indonesia? And I was wearing an Indonesian shirt in the photo too. And so he just called the number and left a voicemail for me at our house and said, "Hey, this is Sean McDonough. Don't know if you remember me, but I went to Indonesia, da, da, da." And so it was great. Like there was a connection already at grad school that God had already set up. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, somebody that had seen your world. That's neat.
Yeah, that's really special. Well, one other question we have is part of our set of conclusion questions, and is what do you wish your parents would have realized or known?
I think I touched on it earlier. Is the way the gravity of our family orbited their work and their calling. It affected lots of things, and I'm super thankful for their commitment and the worldview that I have from seeing all these great places and meeting these great people. But it is just it's not an obsession, but it's a different kind of focus that does touch everything. And I don't fault that for them, but it does, it just changes your axis that you're on.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that was tricky. And like for me, my transition was fairly easy. For my sister, it was a different story. And we're all navigating those transitions as young adults, trying to figure it out with our faith, or sometimes people lose their faith. But it's just something that I wish was a little bit more on my parents' radar.
What did you guys talk about it? Or was it just sort of like literal gravity? It just exists. It's just the way things are. And so
it just kind of existed. I remember when I was I was a sophomore, and it was my dad's birthday, and I wrote him on the birthday card, "Thanks for putting up with me." Because it isn't like he said, "Oh no, I love you and you're important," but maybe something to that effect. But you get the feeling that you're not the number one priority, which is fine, because you don't want to be idolatrous and doing everything for your children.
Sure.
And same with your spouse. Like the best thing you could do to love your spouse is to love God. And then the best thing to love your children is to love God. Then you can love your children.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just kind of, maybe it's my teenage lens where I felt like I was just not tolerated, but you get shipped off to boarding school and you're like, oh, okay. You feel like, maybe, am I holding you back? Because thanks for putting up with me, because you got all this important stuff to do. So it was a strange kind of thing, but I wouldn't trade it. But it's something I wish that was a little bit more discussed.
Yeah. I think that sometimes, even just thinking about my own journey as a parent of kids that moved to another country and then moved back, and I think that I know that we could have had more conversations, that it could have been helpful to have more conversations about the impact of some of the stuff. And it's encouraging to think that even if I missed the opportunity or didn't take, because maybe I was too overwhelmed and going through the stress of my own transitions, it's not too late to have conversations about things with my kids or with my spouse.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, because also as our kids get older, then they have different perspectives. Like Sam, you were talking about, like you're reflecting on your past. And so we become more aware of circumstances as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
So those are great times to have conversations.
Yeah. It's encouraging to think that, it's not too late.
Well, and every relationship is a cross-cultural experience. Like what you grow up with as your baseline norm is skewed in all sorts of ways that you just don't realize. And then you meet someone, you fall in love with them, and realize what they think is normal is just kind of quirky. You're like, why aren't you normal like me? But it's a cross-cultural experience. You need to meet somewhere in the middle.
Okay, Sam, tell us a final story about how your time abroad continues to add value to your life now.
Sure. I think one of the skills I learned as a third culture kid at TCK was fitting in and how to figure out how to be comfortable wherever I was. One of the really great resources for that was my older sister because we had so much of the same experiences. And it was really nice to have an older sibling looking out for me, telling me what it was going to be like when I got to boarding school, telling me that my dorm parents were really cool people.
Mm-hmm.
So the world that you have as a third culture kid kind of shrinks to be just your immediate family sometimes, especially as you're transitioning. And so she really helps through that process. And so I think one of my skills is fitting in. I really love people and I love hearing about other people's stories and learning about them. But I also like to fit in and be part of a team that's bigger than me. I'm not going to be a pioneer like out in front of everyone else, but I'll be a good wingman and say, "Hey, that's your project. Awesome. Let's go do that." So like because of all the transitions, I'll be happy anywhere. Even if it's working in the kitchen at the restaurant, it's 100 degrees out, sweating my tail off. I'll still have fun and make the most of it. So the skill of fitting in is probably the thing that I still use every day.
Okay, thanks, Sam. And what is one last word of encouragement or advice you can give to our listeners, especially those TCKs?
I think it's the importance of flexibility at the different situations and experiences that you face. Sometimes it's going to be overwhelming, and sometimes God goes ahead of you and prepares the friendships that you're going to make. One of the things that I want to circle back to that I forgot was just the expanding horizon that you get from these experiences, to know that, like I said about the World Communion Sunday, there's people who are part of this community of faith all over the world. And to know that we have that connection there that's deeper and it surpasses the cultural differences that we might have. I was talking with Rachel last night about it. I think I'm on my 7th passport now. And it's really important to have that when you're going to different places. But the lens that I have is something that supersedes the passport of my passport country. It's the citizenship that I have as part of God's family, like in Philippians 3. And sometimes we can get tied up in knots about very specific things to our context. And I think just go visit with the friends in Peru or the friends in Wuhan and know that it's something that the things that we're so emotional about is really not that important. Let's be part of God's work together.
Amen.
Thank you, Sam.
As we land this interview, we hope that you have been inspired by Sam's TCK stories about his return to the U.S. after growing up in Indonesia and Malaysia. Even though he wishes that his family talked more about how their mission touched every aspect of his growing up, he knows that it is never too late to have those conversations now. Growing up as a TCK has given him a deep love for people and their stories wherever they are from, and he realizes that we can all be part of God's work together. No matter what leg of the journey you're on, we are so grateful you have brought us along with you.
Want to be part of future conversations? Join our email list and get the podcast equivalent of TSA PreCheck, including a sneak peek at upcoming customs topics and an invitation to share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. See the link in the show notes to sign up. Come back next time for an interview with Shakura Barbadier, a travel and nature lover, and an adult third culture kid from the United Kingdom. Shakura did her schooling in British schools in the United States and Singapore because her mom worked in international schools in those two countries. We can't wait for you to hear Shakura's stories.
Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.